Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. I do a podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk, and it sure is good to talk. I always have guests on, but today it's only me because I have a lot to talk about. As people know me because I produced this book, Stoney McGurn, my good friend. It's about his life story from 1941 up until a few years ago, highs and lows. And it's also on audio. You can get it on Amazon. And it's a good read. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, a moving company here in New York City. They have been around longer than the New York City Marathon, running very smooth. If you need lifting, let Liffey do the lifting. The best probably in New York City, without a doubt. I always give a shout out to a newspaper called Irish Examiner USA, and there's a lot of news in that paper this week in particular, because we're coming up to March. A lot of functions coming up. I want to mention one we were at on Saturday night, and that was to do with the Mayo Society of New York. Okay, so that was last Saturday night. The honorees were Roseanne Maloney, that would be my sister, Jimmy McMahon, was the Mayo Man of the Year. So they picked up a Woman of the Year, a Man of the Year. The MC was done by my nephew, Michael D. McAndrew, and he featured on my podcast before. He's a sports journalist with Midwest Radio, and that was a very, very good podcast dealing with Irish football and hurling. And indeed, we talked about rugby as well. All-Ireland football final is coming up in July again. Michael D did give me a few tips, and I might share those with you later on if you're into Irish football. Who's going to win, who's in, who's out. Now, this year, I gave you the honorees. That was my sister Rose and Jimmy McMahon, and the Society of New York. Kieran McAndrew is the president. He'd be my nephew as well. Sounds like nepotism. Maureen Higgins is the vice president, and Betty McLaughlin Irvin is the chief organizer of the dinner function and everything else that goes with it to make sure the night runs smooth. And it did. As a matter of fact, Paddy McCarthy was at the dance. He would be the editor, publisher of the Irish Examiner, and he was making notes. So you'll get a lot of information this week in the Irish Examiner USA. Look it up. You can Google it. It's online. So this year's Grand Marshal for the parade, which is on Saturday, March 16th, is Maggie Timony. Who's she? Well, she is a woman from Ballina in County Mayo. A lot of Mayo stuff going on here. And she is the CEO and top woman in Heineken USA. It's rare for a woman to be the top person in a beer company. Heineken USA. She is indeed a lovely, lovely woman from Ballina, which is a great town in Mayo. I have many happy memories from me there. It's a great river there, the Moy, for fishing, and great people come from Mayo. Mary Robinson, our first president, was born in Ballina as well. Jack Charlton, he wasn't born in Ballina, but he did a lot of fishing in Ballina on the River Moy, okay? So Maggie Timony will be heading up. That's a picture of her there on the back of this book. And she is indeed, as I said, a wonderful marketing person, great respect for her. And she's a great example to what a good marketing person should be when it comes to promoting a product. Now, I want to move on a little bit and give you I met some other people in the past 2 weeks as well. Well, let's start with St. Patrick. You all know St. Patrick. Or do you know St. Patrick? St. Patrick was born actually in England, on the east coast of England, way, way back in the day. And he was kidnapped by pirates and brought over to Ireland, to Donegal, which is in the north of Ireland. For those of you who are not familiar with the map of Ireland, it's way up there in the north of Ireland, over near the coast as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, okay? I did have Jerry Coyle on here. He wrote a book about his father, who was a gun runner, and his father taught him, scenery is great, but it doesn't put food on the table. Anyways, poor St. Patrick at the time was there in Donegal, and he got it. Well, I guess he landed a job. It was slavery then, okay? Yes, we had slaves in Ireland, believe it or not, back then. And all his job was to mind sheep in Donegal. And after 6 years, nothing wrong with sheep. They're very affectionate animals. But St. Patrick, we call him Paddy, okay? I call him Paddy because he wasn't a saint yet. And he got fed up with minding the sheep in Donegal and the cold weather and everything. And he was able to escape back to England. And he was back in England. I guess we don't know what happened there. But then he made his way over to France. And it's while he was in France, actually, that he had the inspiration, it's like he got a letter in his head from God. And God told him, you must go back to Ireland to educate the people on Christianity. So Patrick studied for a while before he went back because he missed education when he went to Donegal. Not claiming it's bad education in Donegal, but he didn't get in school. So he did a lot of study before he went back to Ireland to spread the news of Christianity. As a matter of fact, he was the guy that used the shamrock, like a three-leaf clover, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, okay? That was the first way of teaching people how to bless themselves. I just taught you now, didn't I? Got it. Is that my right hand? Okay. Anyways, he was there and he was converting and he consecrated, I guess that's the right word, a lot of men to become priests because you need foot soldiers. Pardon the pun. He was successful in that and spreading the religion. He wasn't married and he had a lot of friends that were men, well, I guess for priests, because women weren't too much accepted in the church at the time, well, that time anyway. Now, I said he wasn't married and he had a lot of friends, and you're thinking, was he gay? No, he was not gay. We did not have gay people in Ireland back in those times. There were no gay people in Ireland at all, actually, in that time. As my mother used to say, one time you'd only see a gay person on television, and now they're everywhere, okay? Anyways, St. Patrick was not gay, so forget about that. Now, today, speaking about gay, our Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, came out of the closet, Prime Minister Dolrean, came out of the closet and he pranced his way into being the leader of the Fianna Fáil party, the leader of the government, and he is out of the closet and straight into Dublin, Parliament, Ireland. And that is wonderful. And I wish him well. He's a good politician, I think. And to be quite honest, I couldn't care less if he's as gay as a fairy on the top of a Christmas tree, as long as he's a good politician and does the right thing for Ireland and especially the unity of Ireland. And I'm moving along to that now because I did meet another politician recently, a few weeks back. Mary Lou McDonald is the leader of Sinn Féin party, and she did a summit down in the Cooper Hall Union location downtown to explain that the United Ireland, and I'm happy about this, I'm extremely happy about this, the date is set for 2030, which is 6 years from now. So it's on me and everyone else in the world of journalism and media to make it aware that the D-Day is 2030 for the United Ireland. Okay, what's it looking like? Well, it's looking pretty good. The population of Northern Ireland, as we speak right now at this moment, is less than 2 million people. The majority of the 2 million are Catholics, per se, and the other part are Unionist Protestants, per se, if you wanted to divide them between Catholic and Protestant. Okay, of course there are watered-down versions, and there's always don't knows, not sure, and that. Now, how did that all come about? Well, initially, back in the day, back in the history of Northern Ireland, the Unionist Protestants who think they're British were transplanted there by the British Crown to claim the land and move Catholics out, per se. I did have my historian friend on here, Brian Layden, and we did talk about Michael Collins. And indeed, the United Ireland could have happened way back because Michael Collins did what exactly the Good Friday Agreement did. And it was the best deal at the time and all that. Winston Churchill, as a matter of fact, was willing to help in the creation of United Ireland. His foresight was, it's a pain in the ass, we don't fucking want it. And De Valera, who was the Prime Minister of Ireland at the time, not to be President of Ireland after that, and he screwed it up. He started a civil war in the south, and we were back to square one with the 26th and the 6th. Right back. So De Valera didn't achieve anything except that he annoyed Winston Churchill. It was World War II, and Churchill asked for a small favour. Not a huge favour, a small favour. Just want to put some ships for strategic reasons around the ports in Ireland to fight off Adolf Hitler, okay? And then the Blitz happened in London. I think we had a few little bombs up in the north as well from the Germans, of course. So the history goes on a little bit then, because then you have Catholics that were discriminated against in the north of Ireland, and the Protestants were getting the best treatment on the hind tit of London, okay? Now, what has happened in Belfast? The Titanic was built there, of course, and no Catholics were allowed. No Catholics need apply, and no Catholics got employment building the Titanic. And the boys, and maybe women that built the ship, were privileged Protestants. And of course, those of you that have seen the movie, The Titanic, and the writing on the side of the ship, the number, I think we call it, when it's reflected into the water, it says no Pope. And this apparently was be it admit or not, was like a curse that was on the Titanic. And, well, the rest is history. She sank, didn't she? I think only about 706 people survived and everyone else perished. And you'd wonder where the life jackets were. Indeed. Think about that one for a moment. The other claim to fame for Belfast was the Dolrean Car, and that went flop as well. History came along, and then the hunger strike came along in 1981. I was only a student in Dublin at the time, in the College of Marketing and Design. And Bobby Sands was on hunger strike. He was only a young man, and he died on hunger strike. Before he died on hunger strike, he was elected to the British Parliament, 10 Downing Street, and he was also elected to the Irish Parliament, Dolrean. But sad for him, he died on hunger strike. Maggie Thatcher, the bitch, let him plus 9 other people die on hunger strike. And that's not good. What did that do? Well, it incited young men and women to join the IRA, and guerrilla warfare was instilled in us since the time of Michael Collins. What happened then? Bombings were happening all over north of Ireland, but attacked the mainland. We call it the mainland, UK, England, London. And one of the interesting stories to show you the skill of the IRA, how talented an army they were, despite being into guerrilla warfare. But yes, they're genius. Maggie Thatcher had her conference in Brighton, in England, in a hotel with all members of her parliament. Patrick McGee, if I have his name right, was a senior Sinn Féin IRA guy. He booked into the hotel 1 week before the conference with Maggie Thatcher. He booked a room right next door to where the conference was going to be, and he placed bombs. I'm not allowed to tell you how many bombs, but he placed bombs in the wall between the conference room and the bedroom that he had booked. The bombs were designed to be long time delay like a clock. And I'll get my historian on again to talk to you about another guy called Padre, a priest, who was the genius that came up with putting the timers on bombs. So in other words, you could place the bomb and you could time it to be detonated 12 hours later, 24 hours later, or 48 hours later. So like I said to you earlier on about Leo, our Prime Minister, he's not a full Irish Jew. He is very much like chicken vindaloo, Indian. So the night before the conference, Maggie Thatcher decided to hit the town, and like myself would do, and go out. And her and a few of her friends decided to go to an Indian restaurant, not so much chicken vindaloo, but she had a chicken korma. Whatever she had, it didn't agree with her. That happens to me too with Indian food, you know, burn the ass off you. So the following day, Maggie Thatcher wasn't feeling too good up to lunchtime. The bomb that Pat McGee had ready to be detonated was close to her desk, but Maggie had to go to the bathroom and do a number 2. Now, see how polite I am there? Okay, she went to the bathroom to take a shit, right? She had to sit on the toilet bowl for half an hour. And meanwhile, the bomb exploded. It killed 5 members of her parliament. And I think there was 12 other people injured. Now, sadly, they didn't get her. I feel bad for the people that died. So the fighting back and forth went on and on and on, until we move on fast to where then the IRA were getting more skillful with detonating bombs, with timing devices, and really hitting like big targets, big names. They did lose 3 people in the Rock of Gibraltar, which is owned by the British. Things happen in war. And then we move on, I guess, quickly to the Good Friday Agreement. And this is where, when I had Brian Layden on here, he explained it very well, actually. Good Friday Agreement was like an upscale version of what Michael Collins' agreement was done back in 1921-22. Except this time we had the USA, American influence into it, and the British seemed to have a fear of America, which is a good thing, I guess. And thanks to Bill Clinton, George Mitchell, and everyone else that was involved to bring about the Good Friday Agreement. That's 26 years ago. And that created peace in Northern Ireland, where the IRA laid down their guns. The Ulster parliamentary groups laid down their weapons. And they were no angels either. They did a lot of bombing, even in Dublin, and a lot of it on both sides. So it's not for me to paint one worse than the other, because I want to be totally on the side of Mary Lou McDonald and Michelle O'Neill as we work towards the United Ireland 2030. So what have we to do in the meantime? Well, number 1, I know what I have to do. I have to create awareness of it so people know the history and know what we want to achieve. Now, when Boris Johnson took the UK, Britain out of Europe, he actually, in a strange way, did a huge favour to Ireland per se, as we look for the United Ireland. Northern Ireland did not vote to leave Europe. The UK voted to leave Europe by a small margin. Therefore, Northern Ireland was left in a bit of a quandary. There is no physical wall as a border between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. Okay? If you like the podcast, subscribe. It's good to talk. So there's no physical wall. As a matter of fact, if you were a tourist driving between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, you wouldn't even know you were going from one side to the other. It's not like the Berlin Wall, which was a physical wall. I don't like walls. I like bridges. So that's done. So on paper, the achievement of United Ireland could be ratified in a couple of weeks. So we need all of the parties in the south, we need all of the parties in the north, and we need 10 Downing Street. There's another bit of chicken vindaloo over there, and I hope he wises up because he came from India and he knows what it is like to be a subject of the crown. Okay, so once again, the United Ireland is achievable. Now, when Boris Johnson left Europe, the UK left Europe, he forgot about Northern Ireland, of course. And I don't like to leave anybody out when it comes to anything. He also left out the Falkland Islands, the Malvinas. That's a small island off the coast of Argentina. Population, it's about 3,500 people. 3,500 people. Jesus Christ. You get that on a busy corner on 2nd Avenue on a weekend. Now, what else is in the Falkland Islands? 3,500 people. They are British subjects. Maggie Thatcher went there to fight the Argentinian when they were trying to take over the Malvinas, Falklands. And she got help, actually. I won't delve into that because I would go crazy. And those people are British subjects. But because the UK now has left Europe, what's neglected? The sheep. If there are 3,500 people in the Falklands, there must be 50,000 sheep. So they do produce a lot of wool. Okay, give them that. Sheep are very affectionate animals. It's cold. Climate is cold. Probably was cold when St. Patrick was in Donegal as well. So that's a little history lesson for you all. St. Paddy's Day, the parade is on the 16th of March. The Mayo crowd will be marching up early because the Grand Marshal is from Mayo. So what else have I for you today? I have some great podcasts coming up. I hope you found this one somewhat informative and interesting. Now, I brought back Jimmy Grady to sing a song because another famous Irish writer just died a few days ago on March 11th. That's Malachy McCourt. Malachy was a brother to Frank McCourt, who wrote Angela's Ashes. And Malachy, I met him a number of times, but I met him for his book signing in Barnes & Noble a few years ago. As a matter of fact, my historian friend, Brian Layden, was with me there, and we got signed copies of Malachy's book, Death Need Not Be Fatal. Anyways, Malachy, Death Can Be Fatal. So I'm going to ask Jimmy Grady to sing The Parting Glass as an exit to our podcast today for Malachy McCourt. Jimmy sang at another funeral a week ago for George Rodriguez, who was a local community guy from the Upper East Side. His wife, Helen, and family were in Crittle's funeral home. And there, Jimmy sang Caledonia. Beautiful song. If you ever saw a funeral home to run out of tissues, that happened in the funeral when Jimmy sang Caledonia. There were no tissues left. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. I mean, that'd be like Peter Clark's running out of Guinness. Shouldn't happen, you know? Anyways, let me call him. Jimmy, are you ready? Anyways, Malachy McCourt was 92 years old. He acted in a lot of soap operas all over in Manhattan here, of course, in New York. Too many, you'll have to Google him to find out more. And he did own a bar on the west side called Malachy's. It was like a singles, designed as a singles bar, and a lot of good history from there. So I'm going to sign off now, as I do in my Irish language always, because we got good feedback when I had the Gaeilgeoir on teaching Irish. Good feedback from that. Good feedback from Nick Hubbard about the golf. He's the master caddy that was on. You should get that podcast. And indeed, Malka Brittany, Malka is her stage name. She was on last week talking about poetry and how she writes the poetry and converts it to songs. So I'm contacting Malka again, and we're going to write a song. It's not like if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Our version is going to be if you can't make it anywhere, you can make it in New York. So I'm going to say Slán Óháile, Slán go Fóill, until I see you again. Keep the faith if you have any faith left.
Of all the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I've done, at last it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. So fill to me the parting glass, and drink a health whate'er befalls. Then gently rise and softly call, good night and joy be with you all. Of all the comrades that e'er I had, they are sorry for my going away, and all the sweethearts that e'er I had, they'd wish me one more day to stay. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call, good night and joy be with you all. So fill to me the parting glass, and drink a health whate'er befalls. Then gently rise and softly call, good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy be with you all.